I've got a camera over there, you see, so I can see to one side. And I can say, guess who we've got on the screen on Zoom? I'm going to do a big jump because I'm going to go, hello, Dominic West. Hello, Dominic.
Hello, Joe. How are you?
Well, I'm very well. We have to explain to people why you've joined us, though. It's not every day that I can go and persuade a random star of stage and screen to join us. Why would you join us here?
Well, it's not every day that I get to get past my wife to drink wine during the day. So
Brilliant.
So this was the perfect excuse, and it, I think, is the hottest day of the year. So let's hope we're drinking whites.
And now you're the latest star of the wine show.
Oh, good. Oh, am I? Great. You seem to get through us at quite a rate.
Did you enjoy it? Because we were filming, last summer. How did you find it?
I loved it. We went to Quinta Noval. Wonderful place. I loved it. I had an amazing time. The great thing was I had your expertise and charm, and then I had Jimmy Purefoy's humour.
Right, before I ask you anything else, I'm going to insist that we start with a bottle of wine.
Yes.
I think we should have some fizz.
Okay.
There's a reason why all the wines today have come from England. Well, you get your fizz and I will explain, because this is English Wine Week. And so we should all be drinking lots of English wine. And have you got that fella there?
I've got this, yeah.
Absolutely. So what have we got? Fox and Fox Mayfield Meunier. This is a 2014.
Yeah.
I've got a few notes about it down here.
Is it pure Pinot Meunier?
Pure. Well, there's a great question. Is it Pinot Meunier or Meunier? There is an argument that it's not actually a Pinot, it's a Meunier. And this is, we'll mention this once or twice, because some people will be tasting along with us, because they'll have gone to CORKK, with 2 Ks, the wine merchant, and bought these wines. And CORKK, it's a brilliant guy, because what they do is they let you have stuff that there isn't very much of. And if you have a look on the back of your bottle, this is one of 1,647 bottles.
Oh, yes. Are they numbered?
I don't think they are. There will be a number on it somewhere. I don't know if it is numbered. I'm going to pour myself some here. There we go. Ooh, get that. This is £40.
I know. English champagne is quite pricey, isn't it?
We need to discuss this.
Okay, what glass? I'm either that one or that one.
The thinner one. You see, ideally, you should have one of these. This is,
yes,
a member of the wine show team, the Jancis glass, and it's one for everything.
Yes, well, that wouldn't last very long in my household of 5 kids.
You had some, didn't you?
Did I? Oh, God, they really didn't last very long. All the delicious glasses with the thin lips that just don't last to me. Oh, dear, I poured myself an entire glass. That was a bit... that was maybe bad. Okay. This smells delicious.
Doesn't it? It's that sort of brioche yeasty thing. Now, you called it English champagne. I don't like to correct anybody when they join us in the wine show. Champagne only comes from the Champagne region, France. So it's English sparkling wine is our preferred term.
That's really good.
What do you think?
I think it's excellent. And it has that. I love the toasty. What do you call that? The toasty brioche thing that not all.
We call it. I think it's much better to call it toasty brioche rather than people say it's got an autolytic character. Well, nobody really knows what an autolytic character is. It's to do with the way it's made. But it is toasty. Yeast? Yeah, it is.
And it's a lovely colour. The mousse. Tell me, what's the mousse? Is that the bubbles?
It is, yeah. It's a mistake to spend a lot of time going, this is really good because it's got a great mousse, because the mousse mostly tells you how clean your glass is.
Oh, really? Well, what is a really great mousse? Lots of bubbles or very few? Sort of thin, tiny bubbles, isn't it?
Well, you're asking good questions today. This has always been the great fun thing about doing this, because, you like wine, but you're not a...
I have no idea, yeah.
We've always sort of believed that it's the tiny bubbles that are the thing you should look for.
Yeah.
So I did an experiment, and he just gave people different ones. He actually found that if it's got bigger bubbles, people enjoy it more.
Oh, really?
They're more explosive, so they tend to fling the aroma out. Do you remember we gave you some English sparkling wine and some champagne to try in the tasting?
Yes.
And you nailed it.
Yes, instantly.
Can you tell which one is English, which one is French?
They smell very similar.
Similar?
This one's
Should be
nice
identical.
nice and dark and
Yeah,
a little darker.
I think this one is going to be the Frenchy one.
That's the English.
My God, you're good. Oh, damn you.
Well, I've always thought that English sparkling wine tastes quite cidery, and that we should just stick to making cider. But this is really delicious.
I think you're not in a terrible ballpark. It has a cleaner knife through apple precision about English sparkling wine that makes it different from champagne. That's the distinction I tend to find between them. There's something that's very linear and taut. Now, it's a more appley freshness, which I think we wouldn't tend to go for the word cidery. Looks off camera.
I promise you, I've tasted, because I'm in Wiltshire, and I think there's a couple of sparkles around here. I've tasted Welsh sparkling wine, and I've tasted, obviously, Sussex sparkling wine. This is Sussex or Kent? This is Sussex. Is it? No. Yes.
Yes.
And they generally do taste like cider to me, but you're telling me that's apple freshness.
Yes. Malic acidity.
Acidity, yeah.
Were you joking when you said you were thinking of planting a vineyard in your garden?
Thinking of becoming a winemaker?
I am actually. You might have detected that.
I have. You're asking me quite technical questions.
I have a field in Wiltshire that's ripe for vinage.
So would you be rather making something still than something fizzy?
Well, no, I adore fizzy. So if the terroir fits, then fizzy would be much the best. And is that what we're best at in this country, in England?
It's a really good question, because that's what everybody's always believed. Everybody sort of said it. Now, it's a great. I'm going to give a massive plug because he's a friend of mine. So Oz Clarke published this brilliantly to coincide with English Wine Week. So Oz Clarke's English Wine. And he makes a case that we should be drinking.
Oz Clarke's a wonderful actor, isn't he, as well?
He is, yes. And he played General Perron in Evita. And he has, it's always a really good sort of quiz question. Which wine writer appeared in the Lewis Collins movie, Who Dares Wins?
Was he in that? I love that film.
So in this book, he argues very, very powerfully, very convincingly that we should be making Chablis-style whites, which you're going to have in a minute, or rosé. That still rosé should be what we would be doing. In fact, tune in next week because we've got Chablis Week on the Wine Show at Home. 3 episodes next week.
So Oz Clarke is against the bubbles.
He likes it, but I think he feels we could do so much more.
Or we couldn't possibly do better than champagne.
I think we're different. This is what we explored really or what we will explore in series 3, is that there's a huge overlay between the two, because we explored the thing, champagne wouldn't exist without some of the innovations like the wine bottle of Sir Kenelm Digby in London, or without the sparkling wine of Charles Merritt, who's the first person to create sparkling wine. And we go to the Royal Society and we find in the Royal Society this paper he wrote where he stirs all sorts of stuff in. I don't want to give too much away, but he stirs meat into his wine, which is disgusting. And then he stirs in sugar and it makes it sparkling.
Before Dom Perignon, or whoever was supposed to invent it.
Way before, yeah.
Really?
Absolutely. Oh, we invented it.
Was the climate different? When was this? The 16th century or something?
Yes, this is, 17th century, I think, isn't it? This is sort of the Royal Society, kind of 1640s, something like that. I mean, Kenelm Digby's father was a gunpowder plotter, if that gives you a bit of He was a pirate as well.
Oh, marvellous.
Someone needs to make a film about Sir Kenelm
Digby.
Digby.
Someone with a beard and a piratical mean.
You can do the moustache thing, can't you?
Yes, certainly can.
Is this for a part, or are you being lazy?
I have to have a moustache for a part, but I can't quite face going around just with a moustache, so I've grown the beard. But it is, yes, it's a lockdown beard. It's the remnants of a lockdown beard.
It's very smart. It's very smart.
Thank you very much. Pinot, how do you say it? Meunier.
Meunier.
There's usually a fraction of that in say, champagne. Mm-hmm. Champagne is normally Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, yes?
Yes, there's a lot more Meunier in champagne than a lot of people fess up to. I think Meunier is almost a dirty, it's like a sort of slightly guilty secret in Champagne. There's a lot of Meunier, and you go to the Aube, which is down in the south of Champagne, slightly removed region. There's a lot of Meunier there. Meunier is the thing that gives it fruit and breadth and generosity. Chardonnay's fragrant but quite linear and taut. Pinot Noir is difficult to ripen anyway, and it tends to give very strident fruit aromas and so on. Meunier is the nice massage on your shoulders of a great variety. It gets its name because it means the miller, I think, in French. And I think it's because there's a sort of dusty bloom that you get on the underside of the leaves and on the grapes. So it looks like they've been sort of coated in flour. I think sometimes they say if you get a wind through a Meunier vineyard, it's almost as though there's sort of flour lifting up because of all these spores.
How lovely.
It's really lovely. It's really underrated. You can get still Meunier. I know, was it Randall Graham in California? He used to produce a still Meunier. And I've had a couple of still Meuniers. There's an amazing one, Best's in Western Australia. And they have a really ancient vine Meunier that they produce. It's sort of 100-year-old vines. It's extraordinary, fragrant red.
Is it more difficult to make a delicious sparkling wine like this out of a single grape variety than it is if you had a Chardonnay and Pinot Noir to help you out?
You know, when you get to the marginal climates like where we are, on the whole, having a blend of grape varieties is because it sort of evens out, you know, different years. This is not only one grape variety, it's one grape variety 1 year. So you're relying on it being correct sugar ripeness, acid ripeness, skin ripeness, tannin ripeness, you know, not tannin so much, all of these different elements, all to be kind of right at the same time. So you can't go, ooh, it's a little bit, I don't know, it's a little bit woolly on the mid palate. Why don't we go and take some of last year's wine that had a keener acidity and that will balance it out? You can't do that. And of course, you've got to get this. This is a red grape. So you've got to have at least ripe skins, but then we don't want the skin colour to leach into the juice. I mean, it is quite a rich colour. I'm going to pour myself some more. So it's been pressed off that colour in its skins. It's darker than it would be if it was all Chardonnay.
Right. I think it's absolutely excellent. What an achievement.
So we could have, what are we going to call your vineyard? Have we worked it out, you know?
Something Meunier.
You can't name it after a great variety. It has to be named after you, you know, Westface or something.
Yes, yes. I don't know. West is Meunier. I don't know. I was going to call it Cracked Jack after the whiskey I want to make in Ireland, but it wouldn't be quite the same thing. I don't know. Let's ponder on that one. The Wiltshire terroir.
Westwood Ho.
Yes.
Bit of a nod.
We could have a couple of hoes on the label.
Oh my goodness. Should we move on? Right, get yourself your next one. You want to have some of this Oxney organic Chardonnay.
Okay. Screw top.
Screw top, absolutely.
Nothing wrong with that.
East Sussex. I've had quite a few of these Oxney wines. These first two are both vegan as well.
Oh, really? What's non-vegan about wine?
Great question. Well, you always ask me these interesting but challenging questions. It is usually it's defining agents. So sometimes wines can be a little bit cloudy after fermentation, and so you need to fine them. And we can use milk protein. Sometimes people have used sort of blood proteins, like gelatine, isinglass, which you get in fish. This should be like Chardonnay, like Chablis in a way used to be. This is Oz's thing, that we have the climate today that Chablis maybe had 20, 25 years ago. You're contemplating.
And what would the difference be between a Chablis now and then? And what does this have that Chablis had then?
Well, it's interesting. We talk about this next week. Come back next week for Chablis week. We've got 3 days of different Chablis that we're trying, which is really fascinating. Chablis actually has this very clear minerality about it. So this I think has more fruit than Chablis does. Chablis has this very precise mineral character. And one of the things is Chablis is warmer than it was 20, 25 years ago. So we probably have the climate they had 2.5 decades back. I think you get that here because there's sort of herbal, slightly peppery character in this. You get sort of white pepper bits.
But this is very fruity rather than, isn't it?
It's more fruity than minerally, this.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
It's very good, isn't it?
Now, this wine is, value this, is £20, Oxney Organic, stone fruits, hazelnuts. So this is, again, part of the CORKK case. I like that. It's that sort of stone fruity tang that you get in Chablis. Now, it's not quite got the mineral texture around it. It's more fruity. But
yeah,
I do get a sort of slightly peppery character off it as well, which is lovely. You have met the most famous, well, one of the most famous wine critics in the world, haven't you? I seem to remember you told us a story about meeting Robert Parker.
I did. Well, he lives in Baltimore. And so we shot The Wire in Baltimore, and I discovered he lives in Baltimore. So I wrote to him and said, look, I have a friend who edits a magazine called The Idler, Tom Hodgkinson. And I said, would you like me to go and interview a man who I think has got the best job in the world, Robert Parker? And so I wrote to him and he said, look, I don't want you to interview me, but I love The Wire. So if you and some of your cast members would come out for dinner, I'll supply the wine in Baltimore. So we went out for dinner and had an astonishing array of wines. I can't remember a great deal about them. But I quickly realized that his job was not the best job in the world, because of course the reason he had or has authority was because of his impartiality. So I assumed he was carried into chateau on palanquins, carried, and naked slaves. But he said, no, I stay in the best Westin in Saint-Emilion. I taste 400 wines a day. And it sounded awful. It sounded utterly miserable. And he was, I think, quite glad to be able to enjoy wine in a social way rather than for work. So we had an amazing night, and he gave me this 120-year-old bottle of Armagnac, I think, and he said, I want you to drink this on the last slate of The Wire. And we did, along with some quite good Dom Perignon, I think. But I never quite managed, which I was hoping to do. My wife, who's a gardener, managed to get an invitation to his wife's garden, because she was a keen gardener. And I was hoping to come along too and check out his cellar. But it never happened. I just dropped her off. She went to the garden and I tootled off. But a very interesting man. And I said, do you have a special nose, a special skill? He said, no, I just taught myself everything. It was rather not an anticlimax, but I quickly realized that wine criticism is a lot of work. It's not all fun, but then what job is?
Who did you go with from The Wire?
Oh, that was yes. We went. We took Andre Royo, who's Bubbles in The Wire. David Simon, the writer, went. Sonia Son, who plays Kima, went. And Sonia and Andre drank Jack and Coke all night. Which I started off saying, listen, you're really missing out here. These are exceptional wines we're having. I wish I could tell you what they were, but after a while, I was glad that we had more to ourselves, I suppose.
Wasn't it Andre Royo he said it was his street Oscar because he was so convincing. Somebody gave him some heroin when he was in the park. I'm sure that was the story about Andre Royo.
Street Oscar, that's great. I love that.
He said it was my street Oscar. I think the guy said something like, "Dude, you need this more than I do."
Oh, that's great. That's really great.
Oh, I have to tell you, I did a tasting for some extraordinarily wealthy Americans last week. I can't really sort of tell too much because they were very, very wealthy Americans, but a number of them lived where you had filmed The Affair.
What, in the Hamptons?
Yes. And one of them, he said, Yes, that was it. And one of them said, yes, he said, I feel rather guilty because I was one of the people who campaigned vociferously against the affair coming to film in our area. He said, in fairness, my wife now doesn't allow me to talk about it because she enjoyed the series so much.
Right.
They were huge wine fans, but he was very excited to hear you were joining the show.
Oh, great. Well, I'm yes, no, it's always the wealthy ones who object to filming in their area. I remember on The Wire, whenever if we were filming in the hood, the whole community would come out and join in and help out and give food. And as soon as we went to one of the smart areas, it was you had to pay money. That was what it was.
To come up with the moolah. Do you miss it? Do you miss being there?
Where?
Sort of, because you must have almost lived in
Baltimore. I got very fond of Baltimore. I was there 6 months a year for 5 years, and I mean, it reminded me very much of my home. I come from Sheffield, and it was a similar sort of vibe in that it was an ex-industrial town, and it had a lot of soul and a lot of good music and a lot of depression and poverty. And so I really got to love the place, but I'm quite a homeboy, I think, really. And so one of my problems with work is leaving the kids and home, and so I don't miss that.
No, not at all. Isn't it ZZ Top from Sheffield?
Everyone's from Sheffield. Joe Cocker, Jarvis Cocker, his nephew, actually I don't think they're related. ABC, Human League.
Well, Human League, yeah, Phil Oakey. My brother owned the keyboard.
Arctic Monkeys.
Dan once had this keyboard, and he said, "Do you know who owned this keyboard?" And I said, "I don't know." And he just went dun 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 dun. And I said, "Is that?" And he said, "This is Phil Oakey's keyboard from Don't You Want Me, Baby?" And he bought it somehow. I can't remember how. It had very cigarette. Oh, clearly, Phil Oakey played it, and then he put his cigarette down on it. And it burnt into the plastic on the top.
It had a bit of his DNA there.
Yeah.
But I've told you already, Joe, that Fattorini's jewellery shop in Sheffield was, and is it still there? It probably still is. Was the absolute last word in glamour and expense, basically. I remember.
Well, yes, we're not a cheap date,
No, you're not a cheap date. No, I always remember my maths teacher, Mr. Milnes, at my school in Sheffield. We won the Upperthorpe Skip Swimming Gala or something, and we got a cup, and I had to get it engraved because I was the last one to have the cup, and I took a long time getting it engraved, and Mr. Milne questioned me incredulously, "Where are you getting it done? Fattorini's?" Like it was, the most preposterous.
Well, in fact, if I tilt my screen up here,
that a Fattorini clock.
That is a Fattorini clock. It just says across top Fattorini and Sons. That's Fattorini and Sons in Bradford, which was my great grandfather's shop.
Sorry, stick it up there again.
There we go.
It's a beautiful clock. And you had a pocket watch in Portugal, didn't you?
I had a Fattorini pocket watch in Portugal. That's a station clock, so it's made for a railway station.
Marvelous! What a great family company.
And I have my ring. That's Edward Fattorini's ring. I'm Joseph Edward. He was Edward Joseph, and he was the man who made the FA Cup.
Wow!
So
wow! God, you're just dripping with gold and jewels and fine pieces.
Should we try another wine?
Why not?
Now we got something interesting. I've got something a bit quirky for you now. So what we're going to have, this is the fella, orange Bacchus. You got it there. From Litmus.
Here we are.
Litmus orange Bacchus, £15. I've had this for a couple of vintages actually. I like this a lot.
It's a wonderful label.
It is. Well, there's a sort of story behind it.
This is from Kent.
Yeah. Home of, well, sort of England's first winemaker. It's the Emperor Probus in Hampshire. He planted a vineyard, or he commanded that there was a vineyard, which is where the vine, Vyne, is in Hampshire. That's reckoned to be the first Roman vineyard. and then Gundul
The
for
emperor who?
Emperor Probus.
Or emperor of all the Romans.
Yes.
Tutti Romani.
Tutti Romani. Well, Probus was the one that he because you get Probus societies, although apparently that's nothing to do with, that's sort of retired business people. But Probus, he planted vineyards all over the place. So he planted up Muscadet and much of modern Serbia and the Balkans. And it was really a kind of job creation scheme, sort of Keynesian economics, because they weren't fighting wars anymore. So to occupy them, he got them to plant vineyards. And
He sounds wonderful, the Emperor Probus.
but then in the end, it was his undoing, was Probus, because he was getting them all to dam some lands, so a river, and then plant vines, I think in sort of modern day Montenegro or something like that. And they kind of rebelled because they wanted to fight, not plant vineyards, and they killed him.
Oh, did they get to drink the fruits of their labours?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Now, what do you think of this?
Very floral.
Floral. That's the Bacchus.
Bacchus is a grape.
It is.
Oh, is it?
It's a grape quite common. It's sort of England's Sauvignon Blanc. So it's floral and vibrant. It's a semi-aromatic. It has a grapey, rather a bit like walking into a glass house, into the elderflower.
It is very elderflower, yeah.
But there's something different about this one. Have a taste. Swirl it around your mouth a bit. Can you see how it's a bit chewy?
Just a bit chewy.
It's an orange wine, or as the Georgians prefer us to say, an amber wine. It's been fermented with its skins. So it's a white wine, and normally with a white wine you just squeeze the juice out of the skins and get rid of the skins. With the red wine, you squish it all up, and you, like when you were in the Lagar in Portugal and you sort of trod it, you let the thing ferment together with the skins. Here, it's a white wine that has stayed in contact with its skins, and so it gives it a sort of red wine texture. This really is peppery. There's a sort of peppery warmth on the back palate when you have it, and it should have more sort of dried fruit, dried nut character to it. It sits for a long time.
I thought skins were much more acidic and tart than the fruit.
They're astringent rather than acidic. So it's that slightly bitter astringency.
Well, yes, I get it. Yeah, I get it, which is nice. It's nice. It gives a bit of spine to those white flowers or whatever they are. The what did you call it? Elderflower.
The elderflower, and it's do you get how it's a little bit like a sort of cup of tea? Not a very heavily stewed cup of tea, but a traditional inner pot cup of tea.
Tannin.
Yeah, so it's got that tannin feel. It is tannin. That's what it is.
That's what's in the skins.
Yeah.
Gives a little grip. Orange because it's reddy white.
Yeah, because if we have this isn't very orange in colour, but if you hold it, you see, it's got there is a coppery...
A roseate glow.
That's a good phrase.
Yeah.
Shakespeare, you can quote for the right line.
Yes, I see your roseate glow even more than mine.
Like gold to airy thinness beat. John Donne. It's got a nice line, that. Or like spun gold. That's Kenneth Williams. I've got hair like spun gold. It's a little bit like a rose gold iPhone. There you go.
Very Charlotte Tilbury. Delicious.
We're now on
the my son's hair. He was trying to dye his hair pink for lockdown, and he came out and said it's definitely. I think it's a rose gold, Dad. I thought.
How has your lockdown been, aside from the gold hair and the beard?
We moved to this old brewery in Wiltshire just in time, really, because we were in America last year, and we've been planting a garden. I'm growing vegetables and fruit. I've got one vine which isn't doing anything. I've had an amazing time. And we were saying, I mean, we were lucky there was that heat wave in May. Imagine, God forbid, but there's a return of the virus, and it's in rainy November. I think that'll depress people quite a lot. But if you were lucky enough to live in the country and have a nice garden, I think it was a welcome break.
No, very much so. And now that when we think about the vineyard, of course, your wife is a professional gardener, horticulturalist, so there is some expertise in husbandry.
There certainly is, which is probably why she's against it. She says I think she thinks it's not a runner, but she's not a viticulturalist. She's a horticulturalist.
Does she object to it on professional grounds or hard labour grounds?
No, I think she just thinks it's not the right soil, probably.
We might.
It's one easy way to determine to get the bloody soil tested.
Right, I'll come down. I think I'm allowed now, so we'll have a road trip.
Allowed, yes.
Well, I'll bring my small dachshund. He can snuffle around and.
Oh, good. We got a small dachshund as well. I mean, there are only small dachshunds. We got a mini dachshund.
Yes, Dino's a fat mini. I mean, he's a banger rather than chipolata.
Is he a dirty protester? I was told that's a Dachshund thing. My little Dachshund, however much she'll just crap on the carpet as a protest or a sign of affection.
Yes.
But my little mat here in my room. Anyway, we mustn't talk about dirty protests when we're tasting such delicious gold wine.
Well, all vineyards have, well, not all vineyards, but lots of vineyards have wine dogs. I think there's about three editions now of a book called Wine Dogs, and they just go around vineyards filming with wine dogs. And I know Amelia and I visited one extraordinary one in Canada, and there's a lovely picture up here. Amelia's got this vast Newfoundland with his paws on her shoulders. And I said, these are huge. And they said, oh, they're very good because we get wolves and all kinds of horrendous predators, lynx and things. And they genuinely protect as people are around and about. There is some quite dangerous wildlife, bears and so on. And so it's worthwhile having huge dogs to sort of protect you as you're out and about. Because it was properly in the middle of nowhere. It was Okanagan Crushpad in British Columbia. And they have gorgeous...
I went there last summer. Wonderful vineyards.
Gorgeous.
But tell me, what the hell's a wine dog?
Well, it's just that winemaking is farming, and so people have dogs. But a lot of people find that they've become quite useful. I know I've been to a couple of vineyards in Australia where they're very good for keeping kangaroos at bay. And there's a couple of wine dogs, which is...
Keep them off the vines?
Yeah. Oof.
Do you remember in that film Mondovino when they interview Robert Parker, talking of Robert Parker and his dog? I can't remember what it was, but it was the interviewer said it was the smelliest dog he'd ever smelled, and for the greatest nose in the world, lived in the smelliest house with the smelliest dog. And in fact, the whole interview, the camera is just on the dog, which is this horrible little thing moving around and giving off its various odors.
All ends. I mean, a lot of wine dogs live outside, which is probably, if you've got a smelly one, is the best place.
Parker's should have stuck his outside, I think.
Absolutely. I'd forgotten about Parker's dog in Mondovino, yes. There is a series of books. Australian wine dogs is a very big thing, and then you travel around. I know Aubert de Villaine, he has, who was a Domaine de la Romani Conti, he had rather incredible, they were very, Stephen Spurrier writes about how he's very fit, agile, incredibly active Labradors that sort of hurtle around the place, and I think they love it because there's big vineyards and they can run around. There are relatively few wine dachshunds, it has to be said.
They're not used for their nose at all, then, the wine dogs.
Not particularly, and you have to be careful, and this is good public advice for anybody. If you take your dog to a vineyard, dogs will eat grapes. They sort of snaffle away at them. They're very bad for them because they're super saturated with tartaric acid, and it's not good for a dog's kidneys. A bit like how they shouldn't eat chocolate. You shouldn't let dogs eat grapes and raisins because most people know not to give them raisins, but grapes is not good for a dog. But they will, snuffle away, and particularly if they're thirsty, they'll think, "Oh, this is nice. I'll go and eat some grapes." Get them some water.
Yeah, yeah. No, maybe I should not give her that glass of wine every evening then.
Probably not. I mean, a lot of dogs drink beer. I used to work in a pub, and there was some guy, and he would have a pint and an ashtray. That's the only reason I think ashtrays get used now, is somebody pour beer in and then the dog can lap away at it.
I knew a pug who loved a cigarette, loved smoking. I'm not sure if that's a pug thing, but this pug, she used to go along the table at dinner as everyone was smoking and loved it. She'd stick one in her nose and she'd love it. So give a pint and a cigarette that is a good one for a pug.
It's extraordinary. Sort of, you have a pug called Nigel Farage. It was there with a fag and a pint. And outrageous. I think I should let you go and drink in the sun.
Yes, I think you should. It's the hottest day of the year. Thank you for this delicious orange. What the hell is it called again?
No, the last one, Litmus. Orange Bacchus 2019, made by a lovely guy, John Warrantshak. And John Warrantshak was the first person ever to take me on a vineyard tour ever. And I did a little vineyard tour when he was really at the start of his career in the south of England. And so, John, if you're watching, thank you very much for taking me on a vineyard tour decades ago, when English wine was in its infancy. Because I'm exactly the same age as you, so I'm not that old. But I think we're about a month apart. So
really? God, you seem so much younger in your... Have you had a lot of work done? Just tell me very quickly, Joe. English wine. There's an awful lot of talk about how marvellous it is. In my experience, except for today, I find it very overpriced and underwhelming. Is that unfair? Is that how it was and it's not that way now, or do you think there's a future?
There is. It has changed more dramatically than any other wine producing country in the world.
Really?
Yes. So it is the country that's made the biggest. There are 700 vineyards, something like that, in England. We have and when we say England, we should say England and Wales. There are no great vineyards in Scotland. The next big frontier, interestingly, for English wine is Yorkshire. If you are to listen to Oz Clarke, and it was just day before yesterday, I drove past Yorkshire Heart Vineyards, because if you go between, I think it's between York and Harrogate, there's Yorkshire Park up near Old Walk Manor Hotel, somewhere like that. So that there is this, it's growing all the time. I mean, we've had Leventhorpe Vineyards in Yorkshire since the 70s. I think he's been going for yonks up there, just near Leeds Bradford Airport. He's been making wine for ages. The way to do it, making Bacchus and Ortega and often these hybrid grape varieties. Now we're seeing much more Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Sauvignon Blanc, interesting quirky bits and fizz. I'm very grateful. The guys from CORKK, CORKK as with 2 Ks. There's a lovely guy, Clive Barlow, who's master of wine. I've known him for a very long time. He selects all these bits. And I think one of the reasons I'm glad we had them on today, you can do this brilliant scheme where he sends you a sort of subscription. So you join a CORKK Wine Club and they'll send you little bits of wine on a regular basis, because I think it's an area where we still need to experiment. So, you get to try something you'd have never tried. I mean, when would you have ever gone for an orange English Bacchus?
I don't know why they take the skins off. I mean, it's so delicious.
But you wouldn't go, oh, I know tonight that's what I want. So it's a nice way, here we've got nice fizz. There's a lovely fruity Chardonnay, which if you like nice fruity Chardonnay, you'd enjoy, and something that's kind of quirky. I think that's what we need more of, because otherwise you'll just sort of get lost and drop into the same old, same old. English sparkling wine's doing its thing. I did a lovely tasting last night with Tamara from Ridgeview, and her wine has been served to Barack Obama. And, they've had huge international global success. The guys at Digby Fine English, named after Sir Kenelm Digby, and they're immensely popular in the United States. Hambledon, which we visit in Series 3. We go and see Ian Kellett, a Yorkshireman making vines down in Hampshire. And so, he's making globally famous world-class wine. So English sparkling wine, I think it's the next generation.
Right. Okay. Well, please come down here and let's make some orange.
I'm quite looking forward to going down, and I'm going to do an Instagram live when I come, and there's going to be your lovely wife saying, "This is a terrible idea. You two absolutely shouldn't do this." No, be fine. Be fine. Play soils. Who cares? Whatever. Dominic, thank you so much.
Cheers, Joe.
Cheers. We'll see you very soon.
Hope
Bye-bye.
so. Lochheim.